kick off right at the start time. It might be a small group. But it is being recorded, and so, of course, people may decide that they need to watch this recording later, so that would be great. Yeah. Great. I am going to drop into the chat the direct link to the notes for this call. We'll still wait a few minutes because people might have trouble joining. Thanks for turning on your video. This call is modeled after the the tools team call, where the idea is to sort of closely replicate the around the table experience. So having video on is really nice, and in keeping with that spirit, I think based on how tools team calls usually go, is I'll be doing most of the talking, but feel free to jump in and ask questions. And I don't see anybody else trying to join. We'll wait one more minute, but then in the interest of our time, we'll just get going. While we're waiting, take a look at the notes, and if you see something in particular that you want to add to AOB or comments that you want to add, yeah, just drop them in the notes. The notepad. I guess it's still called Hedge Doc. I'll say just Hedge Doc there's been we're on version 1 point something or other of Hedge Doc, and there's been a version 2.0 threatened of Hedge Doc for about the last year and a half, which has, of course, amazing new features that we won't get to see until it's released. But I'm looking forward to it. So, okay, we're about 2 minutes after the top of the hour, and I guess it's just us for now. Somebody might join, but I'm going to propose that we just get going. I will talk through the points that I prepared in the notes, but if, like I said, just interrupt me. Just jump in. We're not going to use the queue here.
I'll say something now just so you will feel like you weren't the only person who's talking on this call. We are here. We hear you.
That's I saw you nodding before, but I really do appreciate that, and that'll assure anybody watching the recording that it wasn't just AI generated people. So I appreciate that. I am always reminded of that scene in Real Genius with Val Kilmer. If you haven't seen that movie, definitely worth a watch, where the semester starts and it's the professor lecturing to a group of students in a lecture hall at the university, and then over time the students are gradually replaced by tape recorders, mini recorders, and then eventually at the end the professor is also replaced by a tape recorder at the front of the room. It gives you an idea of the vintage of the movie, and also sort of the dynamic where yeah. But here we go. So I put together this set of things just based on what's been going on. The TLDR of it is a lot of stuff has been going on. I reviewed the last meeting's notes, which was actually way back in June. And a lot of stuff has been going on, but not actually the things that I thought would be going on when we wrote up the notes in June. So there are a few things here where we'll get to, and I'll just say, hey, there's been progress, but not necessarily the ISG form of in progress, where maybe things are still bubbling. There's been a little bit of progress, but not a full realization of what we thought we'd have done by now. the first part of this notes is just as a reminder about what we're talking about here in comms, marketing communications in particular. And I would say that I think, as I did the last time, the IETF has a very particular flavor of marketing communications, because we're not really marketing widgets or anything like that. So a lot of it is kind of community building and that kind of stuff. So you'll see that reflected in what's been going on. The one big thing that has lagged is this journey map development. Last time we talked about these are sort of the 3 journey maps, and we talked a little bit about what journey maps are and are not. These are still the ones. They are still in progress, in that there's been some work, but not really enough to be useful to review. And the thing that's missing in the notes here is that it's still going to be an iterative process. So what will happen is we'll have a draft version of these 3. We'll share it out for input, and we'll get some input. We'll collect more data. We'll update them, and that will revise them again. And so this will be a sort of a loop. The other thing to say about these is these are not supposed to be these are supposed to be helpful tools as guides. So they're not they're models. They're not reality, but they can help identify where things are missing. And an example of that has happened actually with the new working group chair bit, even in advance of having that fully developed user journey. And I'll talk about that a little bit later as well. So they don't represent every user journey. They're just sort of like the high value ones, the ones, because you couldn't model every user journey, and they're not supposed to be 100%. They're supposed to be a little bit abstracted, or sort of cartoon is kind of a word, where like or impressionist. They represent reality, but maybe not in its full fidelity. So they're guides, they're models. Anything about that? Nope. Okay. I'm moving ahead to the updates to www.itf.org. I think since last time, I couldn't remember exactly the timing, but I think the footer is now much different. It actually adheres to sort of what you expect from a modern footer, where it sort of replicates a version of the site-wide navigation, and you can directly jump to various pages within the sections of the site. So that's actually quite nice. Allows a lot of flexibility. The site-wide navigation at the main menus at the top have also been changed. There's been the Support Us section has been updated a bit, but still needs more work. Participate has been really revamped in terms of the navigation and also the content underneath it. So since the last meeting, we've retired the DAO, which is actually good, and a lot of that content has been worked into other pages. There's been at least one new page, this Roles of the IETF, which is kind of a reference page, but is actually was useful to develop, and I expect will evolve, because it provides a catalog of all the roles that you could play as a participant in the IETF if you wanted to. And I don't think there was never a page that actually mapped those out in one place before. So it's definitely new. And then these things that are reworked include tools and services, which is a different approach to that page, and mailing lists, because of course the Mailman 3 migration took place between June and now. So those are reworked. Support Us still needs some more updates. This Reimagine Technology section, that was one of the things that I thought would be another one of the things that I thought would be done by now. It turns out content to drive that is actually tougher to develop than I expected. So the point of this is to have deep dives. Let me restate that. To have focus areas on technologies that would be of interest more generally, like DNS. Everybody uses domain names. L4S, which is new and hot, which is of interest to gaming people and also to ISPs. So Comcast has been working a lot on this. And to make the connection between those IETF, those technologies that were developed in the IETF and the broader internet. And then you can see quick in our WebRTC, which are some of the existing ones. So the approach is kind of set, but we're waiting on the content to actually make that happen.
Is the content for those being generated by IETF people, or are we trying to get technical writers to write it for us?
It's the latter. So yes, it is not. And having just reviewed some, I won't say which one, but some very long content describing IETF work, I think it's really important that we get technology writers in to help translate the IETF world into stuff that's more approachable by a broader audience. So yeah, the technology writers, and that's actually part of the. I think this is going to be a curve where the first version or the first edition of this is taking a lot longer than I expected. Maybe that's just a sign that I'm too much of an insider now. But the technology, we have a couple technical writers. One working especially on DNS, and so she has done really good work to interview people and then do the translation to, and it's almost done. But once my experience is once people sort of get it then it's easier to do the next iteration. So L4S is the next one we're going to work on.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah. Any other questions on www.itf.org? Okay. There's lots of other work going on. So, for example, we're working entirely the open records page and other content. So this is not to say that this is the only content that's always being updated. And of course, it's not just when I say us updating, it's the secretariat and some staff and other folks, LLC staff. So there's the pages are always being updated. So it's I just wanted to highlight these because they were mentioned at the last meeting. So those are the things that I thought would be that sort of carried over. The rest are kind of FYI, but happy to talk about them, obviously. The first one is, this is one of sort of the bits of work that I wasn't expecting, but came out of especially the IESG, mostly IESG retreat in June, which was working group chair resources. So folks from the ISG are focused on this, and there's been some work to get some of this done, like this resource list for new chairs, and this is what connects back to that user journey about a new chair. So walking through what a new chair actually needs to get started in the group. Did an interview with a new chair and got some really good input from him, and talked to the ISG folks, and so have put together this first step of what a chair might want to consider looking at in terms of resources when they get if they're new to chairing. The flip side of this is, of course, you need to make sure that the ADs know about this as well, so that when they bring a new chair on, they have awareness enough to point them to these kinds of resources. So that's works that's been going on. Additional items in that same vein are templates for common chair emails. It turns out that we found people search email archives for messages from people who they think are good chairs, and then copy paste those messages and adapt them to their own working group. So it might be just easier to provide some templates in one place so that they can just go and get them there, and then you don't have to rely on the wisdom. But this copy paste from existing templates is a common theme that we've been finding. So, for example, in the ID author journey, people use even XML templates from outdated XML to create the new internet drafts, and so they carry over these things that have to be continually corrected. So the authors.itf.org site has done a lot to help with this, but it's better just to give them rather than having to start from an existing draft that they have laying around on their own computer, give them a place to go to find the correct template to use. The other aspect of things that's been identified would be guides for common IETF data tracker actions that chairs take specifically. There's a little bit of tension here. Well, first of all, I'll say that there's been some work on this that Miria and Drew and other folks have done, and that's linked to right there. And there is a little bit of tension in this because philosophically, a good GUI, graphic user interface, will be self-documenting, so that people should be able to figure out what to do, because otherwise you'd just be using a command line interface. You'd memorize all the commands and have a cheat sheet maybe, but a GUI should just present you with the stuff that you should want to be able to do and can do. And the other tension is that data trackers update so quickly that, or so often, that sometimes developing a quick guide and keeping the quick guide current is a challenge. So yeah, I see knowing smiles. Anyway, any thoughts on this? Any ideas?
Like, not immediately. Again, I'm basically agreeing with everything you said. It would be good to have the data tracker does change so frequently that sometimes things get out of date. Although I will say that recently the changes have not been so astronomical that if something looked slightly different, you couldn't still figure out what it was. It's more about making sure that new features get added. Because like before, there wasn't a way to do this, so you have to do some sort of workaround to get what you want reflected, and then suddenly there is a new thing that actually does the thing you want with a couple of clicks of a button. Those are the things we want to really make sure that people know about.
Okay, that's really interesting. That's good to know. The other level of this, though, I found is that sometimes new chairs especially, don't even know what they should be using the data tracker for. And this is not just not to pick on new chairs, but I know new area directors also run into this, where they're not sure exactly what they should be using the data tracker for or how to look for it. So it's a common tension.
Yeah, I mean, like for both working group chairs and the IESG, they have these like state machine things where you click on it and it explains what the states are. And I feel like a lot of times people's questions might be answered by looking at that, but they don't think to look at it. If there's a way to make that more obvious, or maybe those explanations need some fleshing out on what things mean. But then there's also the tension of throwing too much information at people and confusing them. But like something, because right now it'll say like this state means this, but like what I think people would like to know is like clicking this button does what's like this state gets to by having what button clicked. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay. That's actually really good. Like, what does something mean? Because I find some of those. I finally figured out what HFDU stands for, so I know what that means now. But yeah, what does something mean? And then what was the other point you said? How to get to it?
Yeah, like what causes, like for things with states specifically, what causes something to get put into a certain state? Is that a manual change? Is it, is it clicking the send to IESG button? Is it and one of the things that we run into is I mean, for a lot of the state stuff, you can change it manually, but a lot of times that's not the best way to get something in a state. You want to actually take an action that will move it into that state.
I see. So how should a state be applied?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So how does and how should. There might be multiple ways to do it, but what's the preferred path? Got it. Okay. Cool. That's very useful. Collateral, still working on the, so we talked a little bit about this. The DNS bit is sort of next up. And the L4S is next. Meeting promotion, again, this is something that was mentioned at the last call, and the idea was that we're going to get three meetings ahead in terms of promoting things, and we've done that for 122 a bit. Haven't yet started on 123. We've talked about it, but I don't think we've done anything about it. So that's still behind on actually rolling that out. So when the full meetings team is back, I think they're on their way back from Dublin this week. So when they're back, we'll start talking about that some more too. And that is the set of things that I had on my list to talk about. Is there anything else that we should talk about? Any questions?
Not that I can think of.
Okay.
Nope, nothing for me.
I will say that.
Thought I should say something.
Yeah, make sure your audio works as well. Thank you, Laura.
Yeah, thank you.
I will say that there are a lot of blog posts on the IETF blog rolling up, and that are not related to the technology things, but things. So blog posts announcing IETF, Internet Architecture Board workshops, new IETF tools. So, for example, we've done a lot of work over the last couple months with the mail system rollout. The attempt to roll it out, just to make sure that the community has been well informed about how those things are going and what they should expect. There's probably another round of that coming since we haven't been able to do the transition yet to the new system. Things like some of the administrative announcements have been posted as blog posts and shared via social media. So there's that kind of ongoing work that we don't talk about here, but that is definitely part of the mix of the LLCCOMMS. So I just want to make sure to mention that. The last bit, I guess, unless there are questions, was the next meeting for this. We had talked about having meetings every month, except for months when there are IETF meetings in place. So the next meeting would be October. And I am proposing this particular time and day, which if you click on the link, you can see what that translates to. I think it is most painful for people who are in possibly Europe or Asia, like New Delhi at 8:30 in the evening is not within normal business hours usually, but it does rotate the time from what we have now by about 6 hours. So, and that might be one of the reasons that we don't have people here, is because the time right now is really inconvenient for a lot of people who normally join. So I'm just going to put that out there. I'm going to propose it, and if people have thoughts about it, they can suggest alternatives.
So you're suggesting it be on a Friday? Is that right?
It's a Tuesday, October 29th.
A Tuesday, 29th. Sorry, I was looking at the 25th. That just, not that it matters, but it's pretty close to, a bunch of us will be gone traveling to Dublin right around then.
Okay. Are you scheduled to travel on the day?
I am not, but others maybe. I am going the next day, so I will be in attendance, Greg. You'll have 50% at least.
Yeah, I am also scheduled for the next day.
Okay. Okay. I will circulate this time a little more broadly, since we don't have a lot of people here today, and see if anybody objects. But I'm inclined, just in the interest of variety, to move things around a little bit. So it's a little bit later in the month than we usually do, and it's at a different time. So we'll see.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay. Well, thank you for joining. And if you're watching this recording, feel free to drop me an email at ghwood@staff.itf.org and ask any questions about the notes or the conversation we've had today. And hope to see you next time.
Thanks,
Bye,
Greg.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye.